The river's edge rippled with a strange tension. A faint, pitiful whimper echoed across the clearing, a sound too small to belong to the roaring kingdom of the jungle. There, tangled in a thicket of reeds and mud, lay a tiny lion cub, its amber eyes wide with fear. Its coat was plastered with river water, each strand slick and dark, and the soft padding of its paws barely held against the slippery stones. Nearby, the undergrowth rustled, and a lean dog emerged, its nose twitching, ears pricked high. The dog paused for a heartbeat, gauging the cub's condition. It saw the tremor in the cub's small body, the struggle to rise against the grip of mud and water. Without hesitation, the dog waded in, paws sinking slightly into the cold riverbed. Soft nudges and gentle tugs, careful not to harm, brought the cub inch by inch toward safety. The jungle seemed to watch. Birds froze mid-flight, the distant calls of monkeys hushed. Even the river's current slowed in perception, as if nature itself waited to see what would happen next. The dog's determination never faltered. Its breaths were steady, its eyes fixed on the quivering cub. Each tug was a careful calculation, a silent promise of protection. Finally, the cub reached firmer ground. The dog lowered its head, letting the cub nuzzle against its shoulder. A small, tentative growl sounded from the shadows, announcing the arrival of the pride. The adult lions emerged slowly, their golden coats gleaming under the fragmented sunlight that filtered through the canopy. Eyes narrowed, muscles taut, they approached with caution, their instincts wary, yet their attention held on the tiny figure that the dog guarded so fiercely. The cub let out a soft, relieved cry, rubbing against the dog one last time before the adult lion stepped forward. The dog hesitated, tail stiff but relaxed slightly. Then, with a measured sniff and a nudge, the pride accepted the cub, circling protectively, their low rumbles vibrating across the clearing. The dog stepped back, its mission complete. The jungle exhaled, tension dissolving into the quiet rustle of leaves. A soft breeze lifted the scent of wet earth and sun-warmed fur. The cub, now safe, stumbled toward the adults, brushing past tails and paws in a tentative reunion. The pride's acceptance was slow, almost ceremonial, each lion acknowledging the cub's ordeal and the strange, courageous ally who had bridged two worlds. The dog lingered for a moment longer, sniffing the ground near the river's edge, before turning toward the forest. Its movements were deliberate, respectful, as though it knew this was the cub's world now. Behind it, the pride settled, nudging and licking their young one, rumbles of contentment merging with the soft, distant calls of other wildlife. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the scene softened into gold and shadow. The river glimmered quietly, and the leaves whispered in rhythm with the cub's gentle breathing. The dog paused one final time, ears flicking toward the clearing, and then disappeared into the trees, leaving behind a fragile, newly forged bond, a story carried forward by silent trust and shared survival. Morning light filtered through the canopy, casting golden patches across the forest floor. The cub, now dry and shivering less, padded clumsily near the pride, its small form dwarfed by the towering adults. The river had settled into a gentle murmur, but the memory of danger lingered in the furrowed brows and flicking tails of the pride. The dog remained at the edge of the clearing, watching silently. Its head tilted slightly, eyes tracking the pride's every movement. The adults' amber eyes followed in turn, rumbles vibrating through their chests. Every step of the dog, every cautious sniff, was met with measured observation. One of the lions, a broad-shouldered female, circled the cub slowly, her gaze flicking toward the dog. The forest held its breath. A sudden gust rustled the leaves, a bird call pierced the stillness, but the tension remained. The cub stumbled over a root, yipping softly, and the dog stepped closer, tail low, body relaxed but alert. The female lion stopped mid-step and let out a low growl, not aggressive, but probing, a question without words. The dog paused, eyes meeting the lion's, then lowered its head slightly, a gesture of peace. The growl faded. Another adult, a male with a scar across his snout, padded closer, sniffing the dog cautiously. He circled once, twice, then nodded subtly before stepping back. The unspoken test was passing. Small gestures grew into quiet interactions. The cub brushed against the dog's side, and the dog responded with a gentle nudge of its nose. The pride watched, rumbles softening, muscles relaxing. For the first time, the adults allowed themselves a step closer, scenting the dog, gauging its intentions. The jungle's sounds returned, the rustle of small mammals in the underbrush, the distant chatter of monkeys, the water whispering over stones, yet the clearing remained a bubble of silent communication. No words were spoken, but every movement carried meaning: caution, curiosity, reassurance. At one point, the cub ventured a playful paw toward the dog's leg. The dog lowered its head, letting the small paw tap against its shoulder. A ripple of acceptance passed through the pride. The female lion glanced at the male, and his tail flicked in approval. Slowly, they inched closer, circling the cub and dog as if establishing a new, delicate balance. By late afternoon, the dog lay down at the edge of the clearing, ears flicking at the faintest sound. The cub nestled into the pride, occasionally glancing toward its rescuer. The adults remained watchful but no longer tense. Trust was forming, fragile and silent, yet unmistakable. The sun dipped behind distant hills, painting the canopy with strokes of orange and amber. The cub yawned, pressing its small body against the side of its mother. The dog rose, shook the water from its fur, and walked toward the shadows, pausing once to glance back. The pride watched, their amber eyes softening, accepting both cub and dog as part of an extraordinary story. The forest exhaled, leaves trembling gently in the evening breeze. The unspoken bond lingered in the rustling grasses, in the soft padding of paws and claws, and in the quiet understanding that courage and trust could cross boundaries even the wild rarely recognized. The morning mist clung to the river, softening the edges of trees and reeds, when a sharp, metallic scent sliced through the air. The cub crouched near the water's edge, ears flicking nervously. Across the shallow current, the remains of a broken trap glinted in the rising sun, an artifact of human carelessness, still sharp, still dangerous. The dog stiffened, nostrils flaring. Its low growl vibrated in its chest, a warning to the pride. The cub let out a frightened whimper and stepped back toward the adults. The lions responded instinctively, tails flicked, muscles tensing, ears pricked. The male lion approached the trap cautiously, sniffing the air and pawing lightly around it. The female nudged the cub to the side, her golden eyes flicking to the dog. The dog stepped forward, pressing its body low against the ground, scenting the trap, gauging the threat. A small rustle in the undergrowth set the cub's fur on end. The pride froze, every muscle coiled for action. The dog's ears pivoted toward the sound, eyes narrowing. Then, a jagged branch snapped underfoot. The source of the disturbance was another dog, wild and unpredictable, its hackles raised, eyes bright with challenge. The cub whimpered again, pressing against the mother lion's legs. The pride formed a protective semicircle, low rumbles rolling through the clearing. The dog, though smaller than the intruder, advanced with steady determination, hackles raised just enough to assert authority without aggression. The standoff lasted long moments, every second stretching with tension. The wild dog barked sharply, circling, while the pride watched, bodies taut and ready. Then, slowly, the intruder recognized the unity of the cub, the dog, and the pride. With a final bark, it retreated into the forest, leaving the clearing still and quiet once more. The cub shook slightly, its small body trembling with adrenaline. The dog lowered its head, ears softening, and the female lion let out a low purr of reassurance. The male nuzzled the cub, and the little one pressed against his chest, grounding itself in the safety of the pride. The river flowed steadily again, indifferent to the encounter but carrying away faint sense of tension and relief. Sunlight glimmered across the water, glinting on the trap one last time. The dog stepped back, paws sinking into soft sand, allowing the pride and cub to move freely. The cub ventured a tentative paw toward the dog, brushing it gently. The dog responded with a soft nuzzle, a silent acknowledgement of trust and partnership. The pride circled, muscles relaxing, their tails brushing the grass in quiet rhythm. As the sun climbed higher, casting dappled light across the clearing, the forest seemed to breathe alongside them. The cub, now calmer, explored near the water under the watchful eyes of its guardians. The dog rested at the edge of the clearing, ears alert but relaxed, a quiet sentinel. Evening approached, painting the canopy in soft amber and rose. The cub lay between the two lions, breathing evenly, while the dog rose, stretched, and moved toward the shadowed undergrowth. It paused one last time, glancing at the pride. The unspoken understanding remained. Courage, loyalty, and trust had been tested and survived. The river whispered, leaves fluttered gently, and the jungle held a fragile peace, fragile but real, binding the lives of cub, pride, and dog together in a moment that would endure far beyond the day. The forest was alive with the scent of damp earth and blooming foliage. Sunlight filtered through high branches, painting the clearing in golden hues. The cub played near the riverbank, its small paws stirring ripples in the water, while the dog rested on a smooth rock, head lifted, ears flicking at distant sounds. A sudden, sharp cry shattered the calm. The cub froze, ears flattened. From deeper in the undergrowth, a sleek python emerged, its scales glinting in the sunlight, tongue flicking. The cub took a tentative step backward, panic rising. The dog was immediately alert, body low, growl rumbling from deep within. The pride moved as one, circling the cub protectively. The female lion crouched, tail swishing in readiness, eyes fixed on the python. The male lion's stance was solid, powerful, yet he allowed the dog to take the first action. With precise movements, the dog lunged, barking sharply, nipping at the python's head. Startled, the snake recoiled, hissing. The cub pressed against the mother lion's legs, watching the tense interaction. The pride followed the dog's lead, swiping with claws, vocalizing low rumbles to drive the threat back. The python retreated into the dense undergrowth, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. The clearing fell silent, save for the cub's shaky breathing and the river's gentle murmur. The dog lowered its head, tongue lapping at its dry snout, while the pride relaxed slightly, muscles loosening as tension faded. The female lion approached the dog, sniffing and brushing her head against its side, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. The cub ventured forward, pawing at the dog's shoulder in tentative gratitude. Even the male lion, who had observed the entire encounter, exhaled a low rumble of approval. Sunlight shifted toward the afternoon, casting long shadows across the clearing. The cub curled against the pride, occasionally glancing at its canine ally. The dog lay nearby, alert yet calm, tail flicking in contentment. The subtle bond between them had deepened, courage, instinct, and loyalty now binding creatures of different worlds. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the scents of the jungle, the river, and the lingering traces of danger. The cub yawned, pressing into the warmth of its mother's side. The dog nudged gently, resting its chin on the cub's small back, a silent promise of protection. The pride began to move slowly through the forest, the cub in the center, the dog following at a respectful distance. Every rustle of leaves and distant call seemed less threatening, as if the presence of the dog had transformed the clearing into a sanctuary. As the sun dipped lower, spilling amber light across the river, the dog paused, glancing back at the pride. Their eyes met, not with words but with understanding. Survival, trust, and compassion had created an unspoken alliance. The cub tumbled forward, chasing a butterfly near the water's edge, and the dog stayed close, a vigilant guardian. The pride walked beside them, accepting the unusual companion, acknowledging silently that bravery and heart could transcend boundaries. Evening settled softly over the jungle, the clearing bathed in the warm glow of fading sunlight. The dog lingered for a moment longer, before slipping quietly into the shadows, leaving behind a fragile but undeniable imprint of loyalty and courage in the hearts of the pride and the little cub. The clearing glowed in the warm light of late afternoon. Shadows stretched across the forest floor, dancing with the gentle sway of branches. The cub padded along the riverbank, its tiny paws sinking into the soft sand, occasionally pausing to sniff the earth. Its fur glimmered in the sunlight, damp from a recent splash in the river, and a soft yawn escaped its small jaws. The pride followed, tails brushing the ground, muscles relaxed but alert. The adult's eyes flicked toward the cub at intervals, always aware, always protective. Nearby, the dog lay on a smooth patch of earth, head raised, ears swiveling at distant sounds. Its eyes softened as it watched the cub play, a silent satisfaction radiating from its lean body. Suddenly, the cub stumbled over a small root and landed on its side with a soft grunt. The dog leapt forward instantly, nose nudging the little lion gently. The female lion approached, brushing her head against the cub, murmuring a low, soothing rumble. The male lion settled nearby, tail flicking lazily over the leaves, eyes calm but attentive. The cub stood, wobbling slightly, and glanced at the dog. The dog pressed its head briefly against the cub's shoulder, an unspoken promise of continued protection. The cub responded with a tiny nuzzle, then bounded toward the river, the pride following at a measured pace. The forest seemed to exhale, the tension of days past dissolving into the gentle hum of nature. A flock of birds lifted from the treetops, their wings slicing the air in a flurry of motion. The river reflected the soft amber glow of the setting sun, ripples dancing across the surface like molten gold. The dog stood, stretched, and shook its coat, water and dust sparkling in the last rays of light. The pride paused at the edge of the river. The cub pressed close to its mother, then glanced back at the dog, whose eyes reflected the sky's fading colors. The male lion's gaze softened, acknowledging the courage and loyalty that had bridged the divide between species. There was no need for words. The bond was clear in posture, gesture, and quiet presence. As twilight descended, the clearing filled with the gentle chorus of crickets and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. The dog lingered one last time, taking in the scene, the cub safe, the pride serene, the river flowing steadily into the night. Then, with a final glance, it slipped silently into the shadows, leaving the cub and pride to their home in the wild. The cub curled against its mother, tail flicking in contentment. The pride settled around it, low rumbles vibrating through the clearing, blending with the soft whispers of wind and water. The jungle embraced them, a sanctuary of life, courage, and quiet gratitude. As the sun vanished below the horizon, the memory of the dog's bravery lingered, a silent testament to trust, compassion, and the extraordinary connections that can form when hearts and instincts align. The clearing was still, golden light fading into night, and the cub dreamed peacefully, wrapped in the warmth of its family and the shadow of its unlikely friend.